Hey friends, welcome back to Pages and Grace. My name is Jess. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'm going to continue on with my recent read series. Today is all about historical fiction. So today's category is historical fiction. That does not include Christian historical fiction. I have 4 books to talk about today. So these 4 books were published as secular historical fiction. 2 of them are World War II historical fiction, and the other 2 are a mix in between. I didn't intentionally do this, but I would say these are going to go in order. All right, the first book is Homefront Girls by Suzanne Hayes and Loretta Nyhan. This is historical fiction. It is told in letters. It starts in January of 1974, where Rita and Gloria both have husbands who were sent off to war. They become pen pals. Gloria is a young mother from New England, and Rita is a professor's wife in Iowa. So they become pen pals and they write letters back and forth to each other. I love seeing the different perspectives of where they live, the different stages in life. That was so fun to see. Rita was a gardener, which stole my heart. I absolutely loved that part of it. I loved seeing their different perspectives and how this unlikely friendship developed. One of the things I struggled with in this book was the infidelity, and not just oh, I made a mistake, but continual. And that was really frustrating to read about. I felt that Glory as a character was just very unlikable, and I struggled a lot with her perspective. There were a lot of things I really liked about this book. I'm glad I read it, but it's definitely not one I'm going to be reading again. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. All right, the next book I read was The Personal Librarian. This one was so interesting listening to her story. Now, this is a fictionalized version of her story. There were a lot of aspects in this book that followed very closely to what is known about her life. So Belle was born into an African American family. Her father was actually the first Black man to graduate from Harvard. His name was Richard Greener. Eventually, her parents separated and her mother reinvented their family. So Belle was very fair-skinned, and through her mother's guidance, she reinvented her heritage to be from Portuguese descent, and that opened a lot of doors for her that wouldn't have been open otherwise. And through a series of events, she was able to become the personal librarian for J.P. Morgan. So this was a fictionalized version of her story, but it left me wanting to know so much more about her real life, what is known from her real life. It was amazing to say the least. I loved seeing the things that she was able to do as a woman in a very male-dominated field. The thing that I struggled with the most in this book was the constant infidelity. I think the last half of the book was filled with it. And I know this was a fictionalized version of a true story. How much of it was true and how much wasn't. It was just difficult for me to read. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I did really enjoy it, but I did want to give you a heads up about the infidelity in this book. I don't know. It seems to be a theme in these books. I think those are the only 2 in this list that have that. I usually steer clear of it if I know it's in a book. I didn't know before I picked these 2 up, but I like to let you know in case that's something you want to avoid too. All right, the next book is one that I got as an e-arc from the author asking me just to read it and review it for her, and I really enjoyed this book. It was Crimson Leaves, Death of an Earl. This was not technically a new release. I think it was one that was previously released in 2 separate volumes, but was reworked into one, like the author had originally wanted. This did make it a very long book that I did not realize when I started. It's a Kindle book. You can't see how long it is. I wasn't paying attention to the numbers at the bottom of it. And then when I realized, I'm like, man, this story keeps going and going. It's over 700 pages. So this one is set in the 1800s. It's a Regency-ish novel. It's kind of a murder mystery novel. We follow Charles and Henry, who come from very different circumstances. Charles has a loving, caring family, while Henry has lost his mother and is left with his alcoholic and abusive father. We also follow 2 sisters, Lily and Jane, and because was 2 books that is put together, it's actually 2 love stories at the same time. We also get the perspective of the butler from time to time. It's a lot. It seems like a lot going into it. I could not put this book down. I really enjoyed it. There were some parts that didn't. I said Regency-ish. There were some parts that just felt very contemporary in a Regency setting. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. I will continue on with this series when the next book comes out. It is sweet. It was clean. It was a lot of fun along the way, but I do give you that hesitation that it did feel kind of contemporary at times. And I know some people with Regencies are very big sticklers about that. So I just want to give you that heads up. But I did enjoy my read of this, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. All right, the last book I read is The Last Bookshop in London by Madeline Martin. This is a World War II historical fiction. It was my favorite book of this grouping. Grace starts the book in a tough spot. She needs work. She ends up kind of finagling her way into a job. It's a temporary job at the bookshop. She doesn't even like to read, but the bookshop is very disorganized and it needs a lot of restructuring to help make it just a little bit better and a little bit more appealing for customers coming in. Through her work, she makes a special connection with a customer named Colin, who tries to share the love of reading with her. And before he leaves for war, he ends up leaving her his beloved copy of The Count of Monte Cristo. And throughout the story, we see them writing letters back and forth, which I absolutely love. There were a couple things about this book that really stood out to me. One was Grace's determination. I loved her as a character. I love the beauty of community. Even in the most difficult times, people coming together to help each other and just to love each other through the hard times. I don't know. When you have a great community around you, it just, I don't know, it makes the book for me. I love it. I also loved watching Grace kind of develop a love for reading, and the correspondence back and forth between the two of them was just, I don't know, it was my favorite. This one was not Christian fiction, but it read a lot like one. So it ended up being 5 stars on my list, and I would definitely recommend. All right, that's it for my 4 historical fiction books that I have to wrap up for you. I have definitely found a love of historical fiction over the last few years, and I have a lot more of historical fiction that's in the Christian fiction genre to talk about here soon. All right, so that's it for the historical fiction books I have to wrap up for you. Like I said, I have several more Christian historical fiction to talk about here in a coming video. If you are not yet subscribed, I would love to have you join me. Thank you so much for watching today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.